Welcome back to the new professional StarCraft 2, the grand finals here of two players I've truly wanted to see on this new patch. Let me first introduce, you probably already like and subscribe to him, but why not like and subscribe for him? It is Team Liquid's uThermal. Up against a difficult opponent, probably the most accomplished in this particular ESL Cup tournament. It is the German Terran, HeroMarine, better known as Big Gabe. Yes, the Titanic Terrans, a showdown for the ages. Both with strong opinions on Terran builds and build orders, and both still managing, despite the shortcomings of Terran itself, to make it to this finals. And I will say with the new patch, I think TVT is actually the matchup most affected, especially in the early game. Let me highlight a few of the changes before we get into it. The Raven. The Raven. That's the big one. The Raven is the staple early game unit. Between all its abilities, auto turret, interference matrix, occasionally anti-armor missile. It served a very regular role in Terran versus Terran, especially seeing up to 3 Ravens in the early game. And now the Raven is cheaper. It builds faster. So about 30 seconds as opposed to 42, which means I'm not a math expert, but significantly more potential Ravens. But the effectiveness is nerfed. It comes out with 75 energy, which is enough for an auto turret. You might be like, yeah, of course, an auto turret, 50 energy. No. Auto turret's 75 energy now. Otherwise the same, but that means a max at 2 per Raven. Interference matrix, only 8 seconds, down from 11. So thus able to lock down siege tanks, other Ravens, Vikings, that's pretty much all the early game units. It is not as impactful on its own. Anti-armor missile is also nerfed to -2 armor as opposed to 3, but that's a little less relevant in this matchup, especially considering the early game comes down to a single unit or two. If you're using anti-armor missile instead of like interference matrix. I mean, just look at the production tab right now as we go into it. We got Reaper Hellion. Not surprising to see a mirror matchup with great macro mines. What I'm most interested to find out, are we getting away from the early game air superiority? Are we getting away from the early game Vikings and Ravens? Is there any sort of opening here for more ground-based armies? I don't think so. Technically, the Banshee also got a buff. Hyperflight Rotors is slightly cheaper, but you don't fit Ravens exist. So, wow, uThermal on the high ground waiting. Big Gabe walks into it. Now we're going to fight over the smoke, the vision blocker here, but overall, we're just kind of playing Reaper Hellion chicken. I guess 5 Reapers, 3 Hellions for uThermal. There was 1 lost for Big Gabe, but now he's trading out. Good micro so far from Thermi. Coming in, hunting down Reaper, still managing to take the better end of things. Well, it really... Oh, that's in total. 1 Hellion to 2 Hellions and a Reaper. So overall, uThermal does get the better end of these trades. Big Gabe made the mistake of attacking first here in Terran versus Terran. A bit of a seesaw matchup. But here come the Ravens. Both sides. Is that a second starport? Oh, yeah, of course. Why not? You know what's better than 1 starport Raven? 2 starport Raven. Yeah, I didn't have anything more clever at the end of that sentence. uThermal gonna double down on the Raven strategies. And yeah, while they're not able to throw out quite as much, I think having that 75 energy to start gives you more utility overall. It's hard to tell. The Corvid reactor upgrade, the energy upgrade, has been removed in favor of just that energy buff. But once again, since the abilities are a little less effective or cost more energy, is it a buff, though? The philosophers may debate. Okay, so it's not Mass Raven. It's Ravens and Vikings. We're going straight into Sky Terran. Just, like, 1 or 2 tanks being filled in here, but this isn't even really mech. Mech and Sky Terran are kind of 2 different things. Yes, Sky Terran is mech technically, but when you think of mech, you think more of that ground-based army. Tanks, maybe Thors, Cyclones, Hellbats, mostly tanks. In this case, the focus will be entirely on air superiority, abusing the fact that if you have more Vikings, you can take control of the air, and with the control of the air, you can get more vision for your tanks and make it easier. Because technically, air units have slightly more vision, and the siege tank can fire further, which forces scans out of your opponent, makes it very difficult for them to either move out or break an entrenched position. This was kind of the standard in Wings of Liberty. Then again, Terran, essentially, the same builds from Wings of Liberty keep kind of rotating back into things, with a few extra changes, but overall, very similar. Siege tank into Viking Raven. Mass Raven was very popular with Seeker Missile back in the day. Not quite as all or nothing as it was then, but this scan, okay, we got 3 Ravens on each side. Here we go, scrambling time. 1, 2, 3, tank scrambled by uThermal. The Viking Wars have begun. It looks like uThermal's ground army is actually going to come out on top, despite HeroMarine being the one more focused. The Viking count is heavily in favor of the Dutch Terran, and he wipes the floor with HeroMarine's army. The Raven control was there. He chose to disable the ground army at the cost of his Ravens, and now he maintains ground control with the Vikings. Yes, he lost the Ravens. It was a bit of a calculated trade there. A bit of a hectic fight, for sure, but now he's in position to start shelling the factory. And a siege tank about to pop out. He's going to have to move that factory. Vikings, you can't garrison them in the starport, unfortunately. 1, 2 Vikings on deck to deal with. That was a weird... kind of landed on top of you guys now. Interesting. The siege begins. Moondance, well known for this position. The main base having an entire, essentially a wall of a siege line that you can use against your opponent. HeroMarine intentionally built most of his base, most of his production, in less vulnerable locations. I bet he wasn't thinking the factory was going to be at risk, but here we are. Yeah, the scan just to see when those siege tanks are moving, but HeroMarine pretty much has to keep scanning. He can't give up the Viking Wars. If you lose, he's on your doorstep right now. uThermal has the advantage, and there's no giving that up. You have to get the Vikings. Look at the Viking production. 4 Vikings at a time. HeroMarine's gonna try to contest. And uThermal's building Liberators now. Wow, they're already here. He's gonna press the issue. The double siege through. He's breaking HeroMarine's base. There is a haste to this, which I think Big Gabe is unable to match. He is so efficiently and almost surgically, about as surgically as you can with long-range siege tanks, just carved out pieces of HeroMarine's base. An impressive attention to detail while still building a very strong army. The Dorito Dust, though, the anti-armor missile, new animation, by the way, looks nice. That way you can actually tell what's going on. But the anti-armor, while it might not be quite as good, it's good enough. The Vikings of Big Gabe sweep the air, and it's not quite enough to turn things around right now. But it's the beginnings of a comeback. uThermal took that fight, underestimated anti-armor missile. Each of those Viking attacks getting a boost to its damage. And that boost being enough to carry Big Gabe over the finish line. And behind this, uThermal, wow, he actually lost a lot there. Overall, the trades look good for him. But Big Gabe is possibly the best macro Terran. He's up there with Maru in that. Sometimes his micro might not be as perfect, but overall, Big Gabe's macro is just insane. Both these players, I have to say, I'm going to admit to some outward public jealousy, because both of them are insanely top-tier, precise Terran players. Now, it doesn't matter if they're Terran. I mean, it matters a little. Depends on who you ask, really. 1/3 of people will say it matters, give or take. But they both do active commentary while playing at a level I can't even dream of. in their second language. I only speak 2 languages, English and American, and those don't really... Not too many people can tell the difference here on YouTube. So, I am both impressed, a little bit intimidated, and jealous at the same time of these players. But not quite as jealous as I am of the boldness of this fusion core from Big Game. The Sky Terran wars have truly begun. He thought he didn't have the advantage to press across the map, but he can take the skies and potentially fight back through that vector up against uThermal. I mean, this is everything I wanted from these two. Terran versus Terran, not known for being the most hyped up matchup. It is oftentimes a bit of a slog, but it's the devil's in the details here. And while, oh my god, how many starports? 5 starports against 3. Okay. But it's not about how many starports you have. It's about how you use them. And battlecruisers, well, battlecruisers actually lose to Vikings. Battlecruisers are more of a game-ending mechanic. If your opponent sees them, especially if they're on even economic footing, Vikings, or even going back to Ravens, could be the option for uThermal here. HeroMarine still maintains a higher Viking count at 21. Armories, yeah, something to point out is how late. There's literally the first upgrade to finish in this game will be Yamato Cannon. Technically, HeroMarine canceled or lost Stim at some point. I was researching it earlier on. But we've skipped into the Sky Terran wars. I have no idea how this plays out. There's so many Vikings. I really think it comes down to how much of a surprise the battlecruisers are. Yeah, scan. Another scan. How many orbitals? 3 orbitals. HeroMarine has 6, and he's adding 4 more command centers. He's gonna have 10 command centers. The fusion core. Oh. The fusion core was spotted while it was building. Okay, I did not realize that. That actually has colored uThermal's response. He's got 27 Vikings. 3 Liberators, which are nice to have, but a pretty crazy buffer. What an army this is! He's got 29 Vikings, 3 Liberators, and 15 siege tanks. That ground army, that amount of siege tanks will obliterate anything in range. HeroMarine's gonna have to find a way to slow this down. What's the Viking count? Slight advantage to uThermal. No upgrades on either side. Yamato Valley unleashed, though. Here comes HeroMarine. Are the Yamatos enough? The Liberators are sieging. Gonna force the tanks back. A bit of valuable micro time here. And big games, big battle cruisers. The tanks getting caught on the edge there, and this is almost looking like a technical knockout. Wow, the supply plummets, and so do the Vikings onto the deck to chase down the siege tanks. And this is all before 1-1 completes. A lot of anticipation, but it does appear the battle cruisers more than enough to turn the tides of that air battle. uThermal's going to try to put together the defense, but he has less of the same units with worse upgrades. Smart servos for both sides. Nice for the Vikings, assuming we got to the point where they actually lift and land. Or not quite there. Our anti-armor missile connects again. That was the start of the comeback for Big Game, and it might seal the deal. Battlecruiser taken down. Well, there's actually not that. It's kind of hard to tell the Viking count. He hits the deck. Yeah, using the smart servos to micro there, but the battlecruisers don't care. They don't discriminate air or ground. They hit them all alike. Actually, technically, it's 2 different weapons. I believe the anti-ground weapon actually hits harder, but I'm not 100%. It is 2 different weapons. They both take air weapons. Not that it's relevant here. Yeah, uThermal. He's scanning, but look at the supply. The battlecruisers were the choice. Unabashedly, unironically, and now uncounterably, it appears the battlecruisers will win the day. Is this the world we live in now, where battlecruisers are the ultimate? Was Bronze League heroes right all along? I mean, battlecruisers have always had a place in the supreme late game of Terran versus Terran. They are kind of the ultimate way to compound your advantage in the skies. But Liberators are definitely the more economical choice for dislodging ground position. Well, uThermal. He's got 23 Vikings. The numbers aren't there. They just aren't there. He can micro back, but a single Raven anti-armor vessel. Yamato volley! Oh, beautifully done. HeroMarine. All credit there. It looked like uThermal with a deadly push. He was going to be able to break the natural and take the game. But HeroMarine bent, but he did not break. That was an impressive both defense and turnaround for big game. He completely swerved off the bio into the Sky Terran, and he was able to overtake uThermal. Well, a dramatic game one, but here we go. Game 2, Tropical Sacrifice. Probably our, well, we'll see our last week on these new maps, I think. Or on the old maps. New maps coming very soon, TM. Actually, tournaments are already using them. They'll be on the ladder whenever Bobby gets a quick lunch break or something. I'm not sure, but I believe as of the next weekly, we'll be seeing the new maps alongside the new balance patch. That was, I still want to take some time and compliment and point out uThermal's very technical. That was a methodical. It was like watching someone get all their limbs amputated. But somehow eventually bouncing back. Big Gabe there. A very decisive push. Only turned around by the anti-armor missile. So, I gotta say, finally, it took, what, like 7 years before we finally got an anti-armor missile that didn't make all the units look the same. It had the issue of when you cast it on the player who has blue units, usually red and blue are common colors here. When you cast it on those, it would just look like everybody had red units. It would kind of just turn it like dark orange / red. And that was always a late game cluster heck to be. It did not look good. It really was not great for telling what was going on in those late game fights. I think the new kind of yellowish effect gets the point across and looks much better too. Cool that we're doing that. Reaper is hunting for the SCV. Finds it. Big Gabe felt a disturbance. Yeah. Looks like he'll be sleeping with the fish. Well, fish. Fishes. Fish. Fishes. I'm committing. uThermal with a quick... He even showed the command center. We know Big Gabe, if you don't take the second gas early, you're either expanding or doing some ridiculous cheese. Which, I'm not sure this is one of those YouTube series where he beats up on players who still have more MMR than me. So, the command center is shown. It's safer on the high ground here, and that means he will have some more SCVs, but he's going to have to contend with the double Reaper. One Reaper against two. I'm not a mathematician, but this does seem bad. He tries to escape his own base. Hellions are on the way out, but there may be some room for worker kills. And this is kind of a direct demonstration of why we usually don't go for one racks expand in TVT. Big Gabe taking advantage of it. He knows pretty much exactly how much time he has. Of course, if uThermal had gone for another Reaper behind instead of the reactor, maybe he gets away with it. But I think Big Gabe has evened it up. And now that he has an expansion on the low ground alongside a worker advantage, pretty much all the benefit that uThermal got from expanding earlier is mostly evaporated. Especially since he has to float the command center down, so he lost that time potentially building SCVs. Okay, well, this is awkward. There's a clone drop alongside some Reaper Hellion. This is going to get weird. Everybody's going to lose SCVs. The question is who loses more. HeroMarine did not evacuate his natural in time. And that means uThermal is going to be able to escape with more SCVs. A tank comes down. 6 SCVs down. Of course, the medevac makes it a little easier here. Can drop an auto turret. Locks onto the auto turret. The boys are pulled. And, well, a second Raven comes out. This one doesn't have the energy. Must use it somewhere else. Well, the Hellions have come back home from their efforts on the other side. Second auto turret. And a messy exchange? I'm not... Now, this is the early game TVT, I know. I believe HeroMarine's slightly ahead. He has the better unit count and composition. Also, the energy on those Ravens is gone. Well, but a siege tank can help a bit. Still, looking for an opportunity. Not quite there. Well, okay. Now a Raven from HeroMarine. We're turning... Okay, 2 Ravens. Honestly, we're just gonna have to let it play out. This is one of those moments where if somebody's unsieged, or sieged, depending on which one's worse for a split second, can change the entire game. Ooh, just kind of lost the Cyclone there. Bit sloppy from Big Gabe. Gonna lose some of these Marines. Try to target down SCVs. uThermal has a slight worker disadvantage. Overall, it comes down to infrastructure in TVT a lot of the time. That early mid-game is not so much exactly the worker count, but instead who's able to put the better army on the field in the near future. And right now, I think Big Gabe, who already has his reactored starport really pumping out, and siege tank sitting at the natural, he's looking to be in a good spot. Hey, a Reaper drop with this medevac. He's got 3 Ravens. Alright, here we go. Couple Vikings, of course, the issue. Guns down the medevac with all the Reapers inside. And those 2 Vikings enough to drive back the Ravens. They do a ton of damage. There's enough energy to potentially chase this. HeroMarine trying to retreat. The auto turret wars. Oh my god! You might not like it, but this is what peak StarCraft looks like. The turrets per minute, the TPM races. uThermal kind of boxed in here. As Big Gabe has managed to maintain his position, they all flung out those auto turrets. uThermal maintains 3 Ravens. With a sloppy loss of a single Viking there. And that actually needs to repair these Vikings. uThermal pulls everything to repair the Vikings. Very important here. What is the unit count? We got 4 tanks to 3. Big Gabe. 3 Ravens to 1. Thermi. 4 Vikings to 2. Big Gabe. And the Marine count is close enough to even. So, of course, Big Gabe has to walk across the map here. Which is a non-zero effort. He brought a couple SCVs over. He's now... another key point, he's got a 3rd command center. uThermal just finished Stim. He's got +1 on the way. There's just not that many Marines to work with right now. Yeah, double medevac drop. I think that's what we're waiting on here. Big Gabe pretty convinced that holding the bottom of the ramp is the play. uThermal keeping those Vikings and Ravens close to his chest, not risking them going down. He'll instead sacrifice a single Marine to potentially see all this. I think those medevacs are done. They're about to be loaded up. Are they going to flank, or are they going all the way across the map? HeroMarine has to be wondering what we're waiting for here. The Viking count is not growing. Oh, he knows. The game sense is so good. This isn't even a particularly hard call for Big Gabe here. But it's very clear that since the Viking count has not grown, and the fact that uThermal has not contested him, he's coming around. He's somewhere else. Alright, stim some Marines. The thing is that so many tanks, they don't even need to be sieged right now. Even just firing out of siege mode should be enough. Combat shield finishing for both sides. uThermal has like a 2-second advantage. Auto turrets out in front. No anti-armor missile. Auto turrets down for the count. No more energy. Soon to be no more Ravens at this rate. Few auto turrets for Big Gabe. Nope, Raven gone. Good splits from uThermal. But oh, Viking on deck. Oh, still in range of some of the tanks, and it looks like a bit of a technical knockout. Big Gabe takes another one, putting Thermi on the ropes. It's a TVT is very hard to turn it around. When on Moondance, that's why it was such a huge deal for Big Gabe to even win a fight at his natural. It is so hard once those siege tanks get in an entrenched position. Your opponent has air control. Why do you think they're making Vikings and throwing them at each other like it's 1292 right now? Because without the air control, you can't move out. You just simply can't get out of your base, not safely. And eventually that means your opponent will take the rest of the map, take the economy, and probably win the game. Big Gabe just showing his confidence and all that. 1292 might be a little late on the Vikings. I don't know. I'm sure somebody's watched enough Netflix series. I did love the Sky Terran game, but that last match looked a lot more like your typical Terran versus Terran. Alright. I expect to see 2 gas from both sides here on inside and out. There we go. Very early on, you simply cannot match those early tech units without somebody around. They're just too good. SCV scouts from both sides. Trying to get a confirmation of exactly that. Factory. They'll show it. It's quite clear what's going on. They check the gas, see the factory. Mirror matchup once again. Back to basics. Even a no collision fist bump in the center of the map. So it does seem Ravens still rule the day. That's the impression I'm getting. They have been a staple of TVT pretty much throughout Legacy of the Void. Just the Swiss Army knife of Terran. If you don't have it, you're regretting it. They have an outsized influence on these fights. Just so much... Ooh, okay, we'll get to that in a moment. So much potential against pretty much every early game and even mid-game Terran composition. They suffer a little in the later game, but once we get to both sides being maxed out, building the perfect army, they get good again. So there's like this time between like 170 and 190 supply that maybe they're not as incredible, amazing when we're both on high economy, but then that's a pretty slim window. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that usually the unit count is so high they don't have as much of an impact. Well, we don't mind. Is this, like, great minds think alike? Or maybe they just play each other a ton, and this is what we've decided we're doing. I'm not sure if it's map dependent, or if they both just decided to mix the mine in. The mine can one-shot any early game unit, all the way up to Cyclones. So if anything comes up the ramp or comes across it, it will die. It is the economic option when you don't want to rush directly into tech, like you want to expand and have a little bit more in the way of resources. Interesting. They're both using it here. uThermal a little more ambitious with his mine placement. Big Gabe playing it very safe on the high ground of his natural. Reapers. I like how he just walked by. He's like, oh, nope. And one of the Reapers dies. He gets in. What does he see? Nothing. He just didn't want to risk that Reaper dying. Looks like a Hellion might be the lucky winner here. Oh, no. He's intercepting. He's looking for the Reaper. Yeah, Big Gabe is... He knows what he's about. The Widow Mines are... Oh, come on. Not like... Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It was inevitable. There can only be one. What a beautiful exchange. Of course, the Cyclone kind of ruining the purity of that battle, but... As you can tell, these two... this probably isn't the first time they've faced off. Nor the first time they've played TVT at this level, even on this new patch. The Tri-Raven, the Triumvirate. We're gonna have to come up. I'm opening applications for names for the 3-Raven opener. I do like the Triumvirate, though it doesn't have anything to do with Raven specifically. I don't know why 3 is the number. I think it's just the most convenient number to kind of do the rest of your build, and then by the time you finish 3 Ravens, you can kind of go into your more mass unit composition or Vikings or whatever. Then by that point, you have the minerals to back it up. Thing is, Ravens are cheaper and build faster, yet we're still only building 3. 3 Ravens was the standard before, at least in many games. So, I guess... we just do the same thing, but slightly faster. Can focus a little bit less on gas income, I guess. More on minerals, like getting a 3rd command center, getting more production up. I think that's most of it. SCV brought, I think, explicitly to tank here. Though a bit of an odd pathing. Well, locks on. Do as much damage as possible. Very ambitious 2-tank, 1 Cyclone army here. Well, okay. This was all distraction for the massive drop, but HeroMarine, that scan was a bit of a giveaway, I think. Oh, scrambles the Motivax! Stop right there, criminal scum! Knocked down one of the Ravens. Big Gabe with a huge deflection. You cannot drop... It disables the boost, and you cannot drop or pick up with that interference matrix activated. So the Raven shield blocks the drop. Honestly, I think the scan gave it away. Big Gabe had a very good idea of what that scan meant. Working through the rocks here. And, well, what does Big Gabe have in defense? He's got 12 more workers. Upgrades. Stim is done for both sides. Combat shield is going to be a little quicker for uThermal. Another scan. Now, HeroMarine knows he's in an advantageous position. He knows likely he has better upgrades. Likely he has more workers. Likely he has more supply. So likely all he needs to do is play some active defense. Don't let uThermal gets sieged up on your doorstep. Instead, continually sweep your porch and you're gonna be okay. Still very dangerous. It's still one bad siege up from disaster for both sides. HeroMarine has a little bit more room for error, being closer to his production and with the better unit count and upgrades here, but he walks down the wrong ramp or up the right one, and still it can go sideways. Well, here we go. The mass scramble. Still a couple tanks on the field. One still firing. Anti-armor missile. Huge scrambles for big game. Not too many tanks able to participate in the fight. The boys are pulled. uThermal breaking through the lines. The interference matrices dissipate, and the tanks are back online, and they are just bludgeoning each other. As soon as the tanks come back up, it becomes clear that while the boys may have died, the back line of Big Gabe did not. And, well, the supply tells the story. uThermal's able to turn around the worker count, but he loses so many units in the process. Was it even worth it? The reinforcements on the way and knocks out a double tank medevac. A decisive shutdown there of, honestly, 3-0, I don't think clearly described the series. Big Gabe clearly the better player, but overall, uThermal bringing a lot to the table. He got this far. I believe he went through Clem in order to get here. I don't have too many of the other replays, though. I'd be happy to take a look at them. I think the summary of the new TVT style is the old DVT style, but with even more focus on those early tech units, especially Raven. So, you may not like it, but this is what TVT looks like. So, what do you think? Is Raven the future or just another fan? Did you enjoy? Well, there's only one right answer. Otherwise, keep your comments to yourself and check out this video. Jimmy, put the video. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Hope you made your day a little bit better. Good luck. Have fun. Stay chill.